Good evening, good morning, everyone. My name is Mukesh. I carry around 20 years of experience in information security. I have multiple certifications and I'm currently working full-time as a director information security in one of the US-based MNCs. Obviously, I have spent some time on the weekends delivering some of the sessions that help me maintain my level of knowledge as well. Welcome everyone, welcome to the CISM boot camp, and we will spend around 6 hours over the span of on these 4 domains, and we'll go through each and every topic. We will touch base all the areas that is covered under the CISM review manual. So this domain represents 27% of the CISM examination as on today, but however it would be going to change and from June onwards. Approximately 41 questions would be coming from this domain. These are some of the learning objectives related to your information security program, right? Understand the broad requirements and activities, what is required, what is the requirement, what activities are required to manage and maintain the information security program, right? Define and utilize the resources required to achieve the IT goals consistent with organization objectives. Obviously, how you are going to utilize the resources, whatever you have in your organization, from technology perspective, from people perspective, from processes perspective, right, with your organization objectives. Understand the people, process, technology necessary to execute the information security strategy, what you have and where you want to be. That is your current state and your desired state. These are some of the task statements that are mapped to the domain. So I won't be going into the details of these task statements. These are provided in the CISM review manual if you can go through it whenever you are reading the manual. Introduction. So what is information security program? The information security program is a step-by-step phase, or it's a combination of small projects, right, that is required to be developed in order to meet your information security strategy, right? And your information security strategy, that is, you have already understood in the domain 1 what is information security strategy, how it is mapped to your business goals and objectives, right? And you have already developed the information security strategy. Now it's time we should plan our information security program. Generally, a roadmap is constructed based on strategy, right? I told you in the last domain also what is a roadmap. We will talk a little bit about it more in the coming slides. A step-by-step detailed plans to achieve those goals that you have provided or mentioned in your information security strategy is a roadmap. Develop all the administrative controls. So once you have the information security program, you implement the security program. So development of the administrative controls, policies, standards as per the information security program. What is the governance part? That is the governance part, right? Implement those. So once you have developed the administrative controls, it's time to implement the same within your organization, right? And once it is implemented, you should know how your controls are performing, how your whether your controls are effective within your organization or not. Some of the information security trends. Number of security functions may report to an independent corporate level of security organization. What does this mean? So every organization has its own function named as Information Security Office or Chief Information Security Office. That this should be independent. Independent means it should not report to the operations management or leadership. It should be independent from the operation leadership so that they can take their own independent decisions, right? These functions include physical security, IT security, compliance, legal, privacy, security architecture, BCP teams, DR teams, your risk management teams, right? Aggregating these assurance activities under a single corporate function is likely to gain favor as it becomes increasingly apparent that is disintegrated. So what is the benefit of getting all these functions in a corporate function or under the same umbrella, right? The main benefit that you will see is it has high visibility in your organization because the corporate function normally directly reports to your leadership, such as your CEO or your sometimes it's CIO, right? So it has high visibility. Another thing is you are most likely to get support from all the other operation units because it has high visibility and it's a top-down approach that we are following. In some companies, information security continues to be fragmented, low-level IT effort. So that is still an issue with a lot of small companies actually, right? So it should not be in a fragmented way, or it shouldn't be a segregated way. It should be under a single umbrella. But a lot of some small companies cannot afford a single umbrella or have a corporate security. That is the reason it is fragmented in different business units or functions. Essential elements of an information security program. What are the essential elements? One, the program must align with your information security strategy. Second, you should have a commitment and support from the management. That is very important. Third is your effective metrics. Once you have implemented the information security program, you should have appropriate metrics that should be developed, designed, and implemented. And those metrics should be showcased to your management to highlight whether your information security program is effective or not. And I've given a note of a small note below. In many of the organizations, if you don't know how to do it, you make use of some of the frameworks that are readily available in the industry, for example, like ISO 27001 or COBIT, right? And tailor it down according to your information security requirements in your organization. We have read about outcomes of information security program and management in domain 1. If you remember, strategic alignment, it should be aligned with the business goals and objectives. Risk management, we have already gone through the risk management in detail, right? Value delivery is something that whatever the investment you are making, your organization is making in the information security programs should yield some benefit and results to the management, right? Resource management, we have already gone through it. Resource management, how you manage your resources, your people, process, and technology. Performance management is something how the resources are performing as per your information security program that you have developed. And assurance process integration is integrating different functions so that to make the information security program more effective, right? So you should have people from all the domains or all the areas, right, that will be responsible for making this information security program effective. You cannot do it alone or as a silo to have some effectiveness regarding the information security program. What are the information security program objectives? So in the domain 1, we have talked about information security strategy, right? What is information security strategy? Information security strategy is based on your business goals and objectives. Now, what would be in business goals and objectives? There would be some, you might have some identified some requirements. If you remember, we have spoken about the requirements. It can be security requirements, it can be your regulatory requirements that has to be meet. Your organization has to comply with all those requirements, right? If the security strategy has been well developed, the primary task will be turning high-level strategy into logical and physical reality through a series of projects and initiatives. Now, once you have developed the information security program, it should have some project management because it's actually a project. You cannot you cannot have the information security program or execute the information security program without the project management tactics, right? And every project has an end date and start date and end date, right? Defining objectives. Now we have already gone through what is the current state. Current state is where you are, and the desired state where you want to be after some time down the line of 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, right? So developing the information security program will be a process of comparing the existing program what will be required to reach the desired information security, and that is always done via gap analysis, by performing the gap analysis. And these are some of the drivers for the information security program that are the ever increasing requirements for the regulatory compliance. Now, what are ever increasing requirements for regulatory compliance? What does this mean? This means today you have, for example, for example, some regulatory requirements. Right now, your geographic locations may come up with some new set of regulatory requirements from time to time, right? And it is mandatory to meet those regulatory compliance if there is any, depending upon the geographical location. Higher frequency and cost related to security incidents. What does this mean? Your information security program is not effective if the number of security incidents are higher, right? The lower the security incidents, the more effective your information security program will be. Concerns over reputational damage. The more you have security incidents, the more what we call it, the trust, you lose the trust with the customers, right? That is your reputational damage. Growing commercial demands of PCI DSS. What is PCI DSS? It's a standard that the companies have to follow if they are dealing in any kind of payment related data, any debit card, credit card data, banking information, account information, right? So because most of the things are happening online, online shopping, online payments, the payment information is being processed by a lot of organizations. So whenever they are processing any kind of payment related data, they have to comply with the PCI DSS standard. PCI DSS is not a regulatory requirement. Keep this in mind. Business processes or objectives that may increase organizational risk. The organizational risk, we are talking about the enterprise level of risk that can increase by changing nature of the business or by changing business objectives from time to time. What are the technology resources? Technology resources are those resources that has been implemented in the organization to reduce the level of risk, right? So everywhere we are talking about the level of risk. Level of risk means the main objective is to bring down the risk to the acceptable level. That's what we have discussed in the last domain as well. Information security manager must be qualified to make decisions with respect to technology. What does this mean? So every information security manager or officer, whatever the role is in your organization, should have the skill set to make decisions with respect to technology, whether the technology should be implemented in the organization or not, right? How it can be implemented, how to do the gap analysis, how to do the risk assessment for the new technology. This is the responsibility of information security manager. Some of the technologies we have given here, the examples, some of the technologies related to information security, antivirus systems, right? You have antiviruses on all the workstations within your organizations to prevent viruses, right? Application security methodologies like OWASP, right? Application security methodologies are those methodologies that are built into the or embedded within the application, so that the security, so that the vulnerabilities are not exploited, right? Like OWASP. Backup and archiving approaches such as RAID, these is related to backup, cryptographic techniques, encryption technologies, data integrity controls that are embedded within your applications as well, digital signatures, identity and access management. So these are some of the examples. This is not an exhaustive list. There are n number of technologies that can be used for information security, like firewalls. Scope and we talked about the scope and charter of risk and management. We have discussed about the scope and charter of your information security strategy. What is scope and charter, right? The information security will need to determine the scope, responsibilities, and charter of the department, right? It's a scope on which you will so the information security manager will need to determine the scope, responsibilities, and charter of the department, right? Everything needs to be documented. Everything, whatever program you develop, whatever documentation you develop, right? You should have a scope and charter, right? It's a document kind of thing that will have all the information regarding the information security program. Now, information security program is not a single program. There are multiple things that needs to be done in information security program. I will cover that in coming slides. The lack of defined responsibilities will make it difficult to determine what to manage or how well the security function is meeting objectives. This is the reason we have spoken about the roles and responsibilities earlier also. Right? If you don't have the roles and responsibilities, if you don't have the RACI, right, so it would be difficult to ascertain who should be doing what. So it is very important to have defined responsibilities in order to meet the objectives. Culture of the organization. What is the culture of the organization? Human behavior, how you think the information security is within your organization, how you react to the incidents, right? Whether you are lenient, you are risk averse or risk aggressive. We talked about risk averse and risk aggressive, right? Also essential a thorough understanding of the current state of security functions in the organization. So this is the responsibility of the information security manager to ascertain what is the current state of security functions within your organization. If you don't have this information, it would be difficult for you to move towards the desired state of security functions. Right? So this is a high level steps that is required in the information security program development. Determine desired outcomes for security. That we have done as the first step, right? When we were talking about information security strategy. Right? Define security objectives. What are the security objectives? Where you want to be and what you want to achieve, right? That is defined under security objectives, the desired state. Now to know the gap between the current state and the desired state, you perform the gap analysis, right? Then you develop the strategy to close those gaps that you have identified in the earlier stage. Then you create a roadmap to navigate to strategy. How you create a roadmap, I will talk about the roadmap a little bit more in the coming slides. Develop a program to implement the strategy. So this is where we are right now, right? The domain 3 we are talking about. And manage security program to meet objectives and achieve desired outcomes. So once you have created the information security program, you have implemented the information security program within your organization. So this is now it's very important to manage the security program, right? How you have what you have implemented is effective, people are following what you have provided them as the roles and responsibilities or not, right? What is the performance of the information security program? How you are monitoring it, how you are capturing the metrics for the performance, right? That all these things will come under managed security program step. Information security framework components, right? What are the components? We start developing a program by the risk assessment, right? Whatever you do, you start with risk assessment so that you have the knowledge of what we have in terms of risk, right? And how we have to mitigate the risk. Identify key control objectives and key controls defined by the standards such as COBIT or ISO 27001. So once you have the results of the risk assessment, now it's time to define or identify your key control objectives, what you want to implement. Right? What would be the key controls that you should implement? And you can take help from COBIT or ISO 27001 or CIS or NIST. Right? So these are some industry standards that you can use for the control identification. Right? You should not implement all the controls in the standard. That depend upon your requirements, what requirements you have, right, and what you want to achieve. So for example, ISO 27001 has around 133 controls, right? The scope of application development is not there in your organization. Your organization does not perform any application development, so there is no need to implement the application development controls. Control objective must be based on organization objectives, risk appetite, and tolerance. We have spoken about the organization objectives. We have spoken about risk appetite, tolerance, right? And the various components that make up management framework can be broken down into functional element, technical controls or components, operational control or components, managerial administrative controls or components, and educational components. Educational components is your training and awareness. So some of the operational components or operational controls that we talk about is that we are identity access management, SIEM, patching, change control, security metrics collection, incident response, your incident management function. These are the operational components, or we also call it the administrative activities. Management components are the governance part, right? You implement the activities such as standard development, policy development, doing the policy reviews or standard reviews from time to time. And this, all these things will come under management components. What are administrative components? Little bit detail about the administrative components, right? So it is the responsibility of the information security manager to be in charge of the organization, must ensure that financial, HR, and other functions are effective, right? So these are some of the administrative function who takes care of your TCO, that is total cost of ownership, ROI, return on investment, analysis management, how the acquisition is done, purchasing is done, inventory management of your assets, right? This, all these things will come under your administrative components or administrative controls. Information security manager should establish a working rapport with organization, finance department, or any of the departments. It should not be limited to the finance department. It is with all the departments, because you have to work with all the departments to implement the controls and then to monitor or manage those controls. Right? Educational and informational components we talked about earlier in the earlier domains, also about the training and awareness. So training and awareness is important in every aspect of the information security function, right? When we were talking about information security strategy, that time also we were talking about educational and information components. Education and awareness should be provided to the leadership. Even education and awareness should be provided to the employees. At all levels, it is required to provide some level of education and awareness regarding information security. Right? In risk management also, we talked about the communication, educational components, and training and awareness should be given to the management, should to the control owners, right, to make them aware of what the current risk. And here also we are also talking about the education and awareness, because it is very important. You develop the information security program if employees are not aware about the what are the components of the information security program, or what you are going to implement at the organization level, right? If they don't know, they will not follow it. So that is the reason the yearly program is created or developed to ensure employees are aware of their roles and responsibilities and what organization is expecting them in terms of security. Issues and responsibilities that are specific to an employee's role and or organization, right? As I told you earlier also, it should be communicated at every level. Interactive education techniques just such as online testing or role playing, right? You might have seen when you do the training of for information security training, it will, at the end, it will ask you for some questionnaires, right? Quiz scores also, right? How much time you take, what is the level of knowledge you have after completing the training, right? That is part of your pertinent metrics. We were talking about the roadmap, so this is an example of how the roadmap should be. What you do, you gather the information from the key stakeholders, right? You got it from the information security strategy, right? Draft basic security policies that are the admin controls or at the governance level that has to be. Roles and responsibilities and policy compliance, right? Compliance gaps are identified and fixed. So this is just an example of the roadmap, how the roadmap should be. What are gap analysis? Gap analysis is performed within your current state and your desired state, that we are talking about it again and again. So where we are now, that is your current state. Now gap analysis will ascertain the difference between the current state and desired state. That is the gap, and that needs to be fixed in order to achieve the desired state, right? How we do it, how we do this, what we need to get it there, right? What we want to achieve in the desired state. So you will get all the answers to these questions when you perform the gap analysis. Personal role, skills, and culture. Who are personal? We all the employees are personal, right? Their roles and responsibilities are very important uh, from the information security perspective. In order to make the information security program effective, roles and responsibilities are equally important. How you can enhance the culture of the organization? By making people aware of information security issues, right? By making them aware of what are the risks if the requirements are not followed, if the regulatory requirements are not followed, if we don't comply with information security compliances that is required in order to ensure that our organization is safe and meeting the requirements. Okay, we will move ahead. We have already talked about personal rules, culture, skills in earlier domains. So it is one of the same thing. General rules of use or acceptable use policy. What is acceptable use policy? You might have seen acceptable use policy in your organization, right? Every organization has acceptable use policy. It help you understand what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, what you should do and what you should not do with the information assets within your organization. An effective way of assisting general users in understanding security related responsibilities is the development of an acceptable use policy. That's what I was telling you earlier. Right now, acceptable use policy is communicated to all the stakeholders, all the employees within your organization, so that they are aware of what is required, are the expectations from them, right? And what they can do in order to meet those expectations. Typically, the rules for use of personal also include the policy and standards for access control, classification, marking, handling of documents. We talked about what is information classification, right? I will move it. Ethics. What is ethics? Personal appropriate behavior. That's what we call the ethics within your organization. That should be in line or aligned with your legal requirements, appropriate behavior, how you how what you do in the organization, how you do it, you follow the code of ethics. Most of the organizations provide code of ethics training also on annual basis to all the employees, so that they know what are the rules of ethics, what they should do, what they should not do. Moving ahead to the program development and project management. Why we are talking about project management here? Once you have developed the information security program, you should implement it, right? It should not be implemented in it should be implemented in an appropriate way, in a very project management fashion, right? So information security programs are rarely static and must undergo ongoing development to meet changing condition and risk, right? That is part of your information security. Implementing information security program should be part of your project management. That should have your start date and end date by when the information security program should be implemented completely. Right. The basis of development is a strategy to achieve defined objectives that we have already done in domain 1. You develop the information security strategy that is completely aligned with your defined objective, business goals and objectives, right? And how you achieve those objectives to the maturity levels by following CMMI models that we have discussed earlier. Information security manager should prioritize the portfolio of projects. What is portfolio of objectives? It's the inventory of all the projects that are running within an organization with start date, end date. If anyone is from the project management background, they might have seen the portfolio of projects, right? It can be automated based on some tools, or it can be your Excel based as well. It will have start date, end date, plus it will also have the priorities set for the projects, which project is on higher priority, which is on lower priority. So the project management can decide which projects are executed first, which should be executed later. Budgeting is also part of your portfolio, right? The information security manager should employ generally accepted project management techniques such as setting goals, measuring progress, tracking deadlines, assigning responsibilities in a controlled and repeatable manner. So it is not expected that information security managers should have a full-fledged project management qualifications, but they should know project management from high level so that they can execute the information security program in an appropriate way. Risk management, we talked about it in detail about the risk management. We will touch base some important points. Why we do risk and management, or why we do risk assessment? We do risk assessment to ascertain what are the level of risk your organization has, identify the risk in the timely manner, and mitigate the risk in a timely manner, right? To bring the risk down to an acceptable level. What are acceptable level, what are unacceptable levels? You understand it, right? Acceptable levels is under risk appetite, and unacceptable levels are which goes beyond risk appetite, right? What are risk management responsibilities? Knowledge of program development life cycle risk, knowledge of program management risk, knowledge of assessing the vulnerabilities in all technical and operational environment. This is expected from the information security manager. Its ability to understand and assess potential impacts if risk is exploited, and knowledge of methods for tracking, documenting, and communicating risk and impact issues. So we have already done a lot of detailed work on this in our earlier domain. You can also take the help of the project manager, who can help designing the program budgeting, right? Program budgeting is equally very important. You should know what would be the cost of implementing the information security program, right? Elements of the information security program budget is element of each product that should be considered. Employees time, how much time the employee will take to implement any of the activities in the information security program. Your any kind of contractor or consultant fees, right? If you are hiring a third-party contractor, or if you are hiring a third-party consultant to implement the information security program, any kind of equipment, hardware, software, any kind of hardware or software that is required in order to implement the information security program. Any of the additional space requirements, right? For example, your VPN devices are part of your information security program. Your IDS, IPS, your intrusion prevention system, your intrusion detection systems are part of your information security program. So you should decide the space requirements also that should be available within your data center. Testing resources, how the resources will be tested, how much time they will take, your training cost, why we are considering the training cost here. So training cost is when you implement some technology, right? You also should ensure that you should train your employees on the same technology, right? Travel time, if it is required between the offices or between different locations, right? Creation of supporting the documentation, ongoing maintenance of the information security program, right? Contingency for unexpected cost, because there is a budgeting, right? It's possible, normally it happens in every project, that there are chances of increasing the cost. So those can be because of some unexpected reasons or unexpected things that come across during the implementation. Okay, what is information security problem management practices? So information, when you know what is information security incidents, right? If you are seeing the incidents again and again, it turns into the problem. Now, what is the problem management? You focus on determining the root causes of issues, right? That is problem management. Reporting process should be implemented for tracking the results and ensuring that the problem is resolved. So your organization should have the complete problem management process, just like other processes. For example, your change management process, your configuration management process, your incident management process. In the same manner, your organization should have the problem management processes in order to identify the root causes in your organization for the issues. Right. As the information system environment continuously undergoes changes via updates, additions, it is not usual for the security controls in place to occasionally develop a problem and not work as intended. Okay. Culture and regional variances. So every region, what are regional variances? Regional variances means the behavior, human behavior can be different across different regions. In India, it would be different. In US or Europe, it would be different. In other countries, it may be different, right? So how the information security manager considers this, that is very important. Information security manager should be aware of differences in perceptions, customs, appropriate behavior across different regions and cultures, and recognize that what is viewed as reasonable in one culture may not be acceptable in another. Let's take an example. Sharing personal information in US or European countries is not common. People are aware about the risk of sharing the personal information. However, if you compare it with India, you share your personal information with anyone without considering the risk, right? There are no laws that protects the personal information of citizens in India. Right? So these are the regional variances, cultural differences, right? There would be different laws in different countries. US may have different laws, your Canada may have different laws, your other country, European region has different laws. So everywhere there are different laws for sharing the personal information. But objective is to protect the personal information. Incident response. So what is incident response? We will talk about incident response in detail in domain 4, that is dedicated to your incident management. So incident response is typically an operational requirement for the information security department, right? Whenever you have the incident in your organization, how your organization responds to the incident, how quickly they identify the incident, how quickly they resolve or contain the incident. That is the objective of incident response. The objective is to quickly identify and contain incidents to prevent significant interruptions to the business activities, right? You identify the incident in a timely manner and you contain it before the incident can create any kind of interruptions to the business or impact to the business. Security reviews and audits. Why we do security reviews and audit in an organization? To ensure effectiveness with the compliance, to ensure effectiveness with the controls that has been implemented, and how the controls are implemented. Controls are always part of your information security program. Okay? As with standard approaches to auditing, security reviews have a review objective. There is a statement of which is to be determined in the course of review. What you want to achieve? An objective defines what information security manager wants to get out of the review. Right? You identify the weaknesses, you identify some of the findings from the reviews or audits, right? Scope is referring to the mapping of the objective to the aspect that it is to be reviewed. To what extent you would be doing the audit, to what area you would be doing the audit, it should be part of your scope. Constraint or any kind of challenges that the auditor or the reviewer can face, right? Approach is a set of activities that covers the scope, what approach you will follow in order to complete the review or audit, right? And result an assessment of whether the review objective was met and what was the result of those reviews and audits. Management of security technology. So there are a number of technology that needs to be implemented within your organization to achieve the information security program, right? While a newer organization may use contemporary technologies, more mature organizations are often constrained by the legacy architecture of the organization. What does this mean? So for example, I will talk about my organization. My organization is in existence from last 30-40 years, right? So my organization may have technologies that are very old. They are running their old technologies and they are not moving to the new technologies. However, if a new organization is in place, they will obviously use the latest technology for their to meet the requirements or objectives of the information security program. Technology competencies. The information security manager and security department personnel are often considered the primary sources for technical security subject matter expertise, right, within the organization. Okay. So how you do the compliance monitoring and enforcement, that is very important for any organization. We talk about what the GRC function is within your organization: governance, risk and compliance, right? The compliance function monitors the compliance of your policies, of your regulatory requirements, of your standards that has been implemented within your organization. Now, what are policies? The main policies, your information security policies. Information security policies are based on your information security strategy objectives, right? All the roles and responsibilities, security roles are completely documented in your information security policies, right? It is the responsibility of information security manager to ensure in the assignment process there are no orphan systems or systems without policy compliance owners. What are orphan systems? The systems that doesn't have any owners, right? So every IT system, every information asset should have the owner. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to ensure policy compliance. It is also the responsibility of ISM to provide an oversight and ensure that policy compliance processes are properly designed. To whom the information security manager will provide the oversight? To the owners, right? To the information asset owners. Standard compliance, we talked about. Standards are based on policies, right? So whatever standards you have followed in your organization, whether the teams are complying to those standards or not. So the compliance test or reviews or assessment should be done from time to time. The compliance monitoring can also be part of your internal audits, right? Standards must be designed to ensure that all systems of the same type within the same security domain are configured and operated in the same way based on criticality, sensitivity of the resources, right? So that is why we create the standards. Standard means the standard way of implementing something, right? For example, your technology, there would be a number of technology. For database, you have a separate standard. For Windows Server operating system, you have a different standard that needs to be implemented. For Linux operating system, you have a different standard. And all the systems with the same operating system will have the same set of standard configurations that are documented in your or part of your standards. Compliance enforcement is more important from regulatory viewpoint, right? So whatever the compliance requirements are, whatever that has been documented in your information security strategy, you do the internal audit or internal review or self-assessment to ensure your business function is complying with or your organization is complying with with the regulatory requirements. Assessment of risk and impact. We have spoken about this last time when we do the risk analysis, right? To ascertain the vulnerabilities, you do the vulnerability assessment, right? Vulnerability assessment can be in terms of technical vulnerability assessment, where some technical team within the security department will run the vulnerability assessment tool on the systems or infrastructure of your technology area, and they will come up with the report. If the report has any kind of vulnerabilities that was found during the vulnerability assessment, that needs to be mitigated from time to time. In addition to regularly scheduled scanning, the information security manager should ensure that scheduled changes to exist technical environment, just like I told you before, right? Installation of new service, host, relocated, or firewall upgrades that do not inadvertently create architectural vulnerabilities, and all such changes are handled through a change management process. So whenever there is a change, right, within your IT infrastructure, it should go through a change management process. Risk assessment and business impact analysis, we have spoken about it in our earlier domain. What is a risk assessment and why we do the risk assessment? And business impact analysis is very important to identify the critical assets within your organization, right? So it's an exercise that determines the impact of losing the availability of any resource to an organization, right? Business impact analysis, by the name also suggests the same thing. If any interruption or is causing causing the business impact, right, that asset needs to be determined which is a critical asset for the business function. Impact is the bottom line of risk, and the range of severity in terms of organization must be determined to provide the information needed and guide risk management activities, right? Okay. The business case must address the fact that residual risk will always remain regardless of the level of control. What does this mean? We talked about it, right? What is residual risk? The risk that remains after implementing the control, mitigating the risk, is a residual risk. So residual risk is always there. You cannot eliminate the risk in any way. Okay, this we have discussed. Integration with IT processes, right? Your information security program should be integrated with all the IT processes, whatever you have within your organization, right? It can be application development, it can be operational activities, change management, configuration management. If you are doing the releases of the application, it should be for the release management. It should be integrated with each and every IT processes within your organization. Control categories, these are some of the common control categories: preventive, detective, corrective, compensating, and deterrent. What is preventive controls? You might have heard about what are preventive controls. Preventive controls that can prevent any kind of vulnerability to get it materialized is called a preventive control, right? So let's take an example of IPS, intrusion prevention system, right? That is a preventive control. Detective control, that detects the control but cannot prevent the control, right? So for example, CCTVs, right, that are detective control. Corrective control, if you have loss of data and you want to restore it, right? For example, your restore, backup restore, that is a corrective control. Compensating controls are, for example, you don't have a main control, but you are compensating with some other control. For example, you don't have a CCTV cameras, and instead of CCTV cameras, you have security guards in place. Security guards would be the compensating control in this scenario. Deterrent control is that normally keeps the people away due to some warning sign. For example, some warning sign, right? You are under CCTV surveillance, so that is a deterrent control. It will not detect it, it will not prevent it, right? It is not a compensating control, it will just make people aware that there is something. Control design considerations, how you design the controls for your organization. It depends upon your requirements, security requirements, your regulatory requirements, right? That's based on the current regulatory environment, controls and countermeasures are most efficiently approached based on top-down and risk-based approach. What is top-down approach? It should be enforced from the top management, from the leadership to down to the down hierarchy, right? Risk-based approaches, it's not necessary you implement controls for all the areas. Based on the severity of the risk, you will implement and design and implement the controls. The acceptable risk levels are the objectives the control must be designed to achieve, right? What are the acceptable risk levels, right, on the basis of which you will design the controls. So controls are always designed to bring down the risk level to the acceptable level. Achieving control objectives requires combination of several control types, such as firewalls, physical protection, configuration, procedural control, right? Or any kind of administrative control. Three kind of controls that we have talked about earlier also: managerial, that are administrative controls. Normally your documentation, policies, procedures are part of your admin controls. Technical controls are example IDS, IPS, your IDM, identity and access management, that comes under technical controls. Physical controls are CCTVs, locks, fences, whatever related to your physical security or facility security are part of your physical security controls. Control recommendations. The goal of recommended control is to reduce the level of risk to information resources to an acceptable level. So we are again and again talking about that we do the risk management, why we do the risk assessment. The main objective for the risk assessment is to identify the risk, then do the risk treatment of the identified risk, and on what basis of you do the risk treatment, what controls you need to implement to mitigate the risk, right? The main objective is to bring the risk, bring the risk to an acceptable level. The following factors should be considered in recommending controls and alternative solution: effectiveness of recommended options, right? So we are implementing the control, and those controls are not effective, then there is no need of implementing the control.
You're recommending the controls.
Compatibility with other impacted systems, processes, and controls. So whatever solution you are implementing, right, it should be compatible with some other systems. For example, you are implementing some application as an recommended control. So for example, you are implementing identity and access management within your organization, and right, identity and access management should be compatible with other systems that are within your information with IT infrastructure, right? Relevant legislation and regulations, if there are any. When you do the gap analysis for any of the controls, you will consider all these factors, right? Your organizational policies, whether the product or solution that you are implementing as part of your recommended control is compliant with your organization policy and standards, right? What is your organization structure? What are your companies? What is your organization's culture? What is the operational impact, safety and reliability? All these factors should be considered when you are considering any of the controls that needs to be implemented within your organization. Physical and environmental controls, we talked about it. There is a very small section of physical and environmental controls in this domain as well. So physical controls are also very important. It also provides a layer of defense for from information security viewpoint, right? So physical security organization may set requirements on a building by building basis and force those requirements using a combination of physical security technology measures and manual procedures. Now what those controls can be: it can be your CCTVs, it can be your alarm systems, it can be your security guards, right? It can be your access controls, swiping the card, right? There are a number of controls that are required: your fire extinguishers, your humidity controls, temperature controls in your data center, and your smoke detectors. All these controls are part of your physical and environmental controls. What are native control technologies and supplemental control technologies? Your native control technologies are out-of-box security features that are integrated with business information systems, right? For example, you have a web-based application, and you have the SSL transport encryption provided with the web server, right? That is your native control technology. That comes that provides an additional layer of security. Supplemental control technologies are usually components that are added to an information system environment. The more and more technical controls you add, for example, network intrusion system, identity and access management, single sign-on, IPS, firewalls, right? So these are usually the components that are added or included in your information system environment. Control, why we do control testing and modification? We do control testing to ensure that whatever the controls you have implemented are effective, right? Periodic testing of controls is mandatory, is in most publicly traded organizations, and it should be implemented as a regular practice in organization to ensure that your controls are being carried out consistently and effectively. Changes to operation procedures should also undergo review and approval by appropriate stakeholders. So what does this mean? Whatever policies, procedures you have in place, it should go through the proper review and approval. Proper review is done at least on annual basis, or whenever there is some major change in your policy or any standard or procedures. Metrics and monitoring. What is security program metrics and monitoring? You have implemented the security program, you know what all are the controls that has been implemented within your organization. You cannot leave it like that, right? You have to manage the security program. You should know how your controls are performing. You should know what is the level of controls they are effective, right? That is the reason you do the monitoring. From the management's perspective, while there has been improvements in technical metrics, they are generally capable of providing answers. How secure is your organization? How much security is enough? How do we know when we have achieved adequate security? What are the most cost-effective solutions? Are we moving in the right direction? What impact is lack of security having in productivity? So all these questions would be answered when you do the metrics and monitoring of your information security program. How you do the metrics development depends upon the number of factors, what all controls you have implemented. So for example, you have incident management processes implemented, right? From security viewpoint, you see how the incidents are being managed, how the incidents are being responded, how quickly the incidents are being responded or identified, how frequently the incidents are being contained, right? So all these are all these kind of metrics helps you determine the performance of the implemented controls that are part of your information security program. Metrics can be strategic, management, operational. Strategic are more related to your leadership level, whether your security program is on track, right? It is according to the budget or to achieve the desired outcomes or not. Management are more technical metrics. They are more concerned at the governance level, right? What is the level of policy and standard compliance, how other processes are being performed that has been implemented. Operational are more related to your IT processes or technologies that has been implemented. For example, your patch management, your other operational metrics like network security, right? How your SIEM is working, how many logs have been captured from in the SIM tool, whether they have detected anything or not, or there can be a number of technical metrics. Okay, so this is the same thing, monitoring approaches, how you monitor it. Determining success of information security investment, that is very important, and whether your information security investments are providing the value delivery or not, that is very important, right? In addition to initial procurement and implementation cost, it is important to include cost to administer controls, training costs, maintenance costs, monitoring costs, as I told you earlier in one of the slides also, that are operational components. Measuring information security, that is also again very important parameter. Management performance. The information security manager should understand how to implement processes and mechanisms that provide the ability to assess the success and shortcomings of the information security program. So it is the responsibility of information security manager or whosoever is a dedicated information security officer within your organization to understand how you have implemented the processes, right? And to understand and how to measure the information security processes that has been implemented. Information security program generally includes a core set of common objectives. So these are some of the common objectives: achieve acceptable level of risk, support achievement of overall organizational objectives, and this is the same thing that we have been talking about since last 2-3 domains. Support organizational achievement of compliance, maximize the program's operational productivity, maximize security cost effectiveness, right? Establish and maintain organization security awareness, maximize effectiveness of program framework, right? How you will maximize the effectiveness of program by doing the audits, by doing the reviews, measure and manage operational performance. Measuring information security risk and loss, that is also very important, and how you achieve it from the information security program, that is the responsibility of your information security manager, right? The main crux or main objective of any information security program is to implement those controls that can bring your risk level to the acceptable level. We are talking about this again and again, right? The technical vulnerability management approaches poses the following question: how many technical or operational vulnerabilities exist? How many has been resolved? What is the average time to resolve them? How many reoccurred? How many systems were impacted? How many have the potential for external exploit? How many have the potential for gross compromise? These are some of the questions, not an exhaustive list, but this will give you an idea what kind of questions you should have when you are doing the technical vulnerability management approach. Measuring your organizational awareness, how you provide the awareness to the people, right? How you track that people are aware of the information security processes within your organization, by doing the information security trainings on annual basis, by quizzes, right? You will track how the people are aware of about it. The information security manager should work with HR department to implement metrics for tracking organizational awareness success. So the awareness is also provided when you join the company, right? At the time of induction, the someone from the information security team will come to your and they will take a session from information security, right? They are providing more and more awareness before you. Monitoring and communication, right? We have spoken a lot about monitoring. What is communication? Communication is when the metrics that you monitor for the performance of the controls needs to be communicated to the control owners on timely basis, right? We are monitoring now. What we are monitoring the controls, we are creating a dashboard with all the metrics, but there is no use if the management or the controller owners are not aware of it. Common information security program challenges are management support is one of the biggest challenge that I have also practically seen in the organizations. If management is not providing the support, you cannot implement the information security program appropriately within the organization. So it is very important, if you have management support, obviously your information security program will be a success. Funding is another major thing. If the management is not providing adequate funding for the information security initiatives that are part of your information security program, obviously you would be able to implement the information security program to the fullest, right? So management support is very important, and funding is also part of the management support. If management is or leadership is providing support and they are okay to execute the information security program, and they are okay to fund the technologies that are recommended in order to have information security program, so then I think it would be a great success.